Sunday School teacher, I'm glad that you've joined us for our second study in the book of Leviticus. We are looking at the Sunday School lesson for Sunday, November 12th. Sunday, November 12th. The title of this lesson is Set Apart. Leviticus chapter 9 and Leviticus chapter 10 is where we're going to be. And the point of this lesson is that God's people are to live as set apart, a set apart priesthood. So we're going to be looking at the priesthood and how we are to be set apart, to be different, because we are priests. God announced at Mount Sinai that His covenant people were to be His kingdom of priests. That's Exodus chapter 19, verse 6. Part of the Israelites' responsibility as a priest, as a priesthood, included sharing their knowledge of Him with other groups. There are people that say that's one of the great failures of the Jewish faith, is that they did not embrace the mission challenge, and I agree with that. But throughout the Old Testament, the Lord has made it clear that He wants all people to know Him, all people of the whole earth to know Him. This section in Leviticus, chapters 8, chapters 9, and chapters 10 deal with God's establishment of the priesthood to meet the need of the new tabernacle. So we've got the new tabernacle being served by this new group of priests, and we see this being established in chapters 8 through 10. In our study, specifically in chapter 9 and the first part of chapter 10, we're going to see the priestly functions being established. And then in chapter 10 warns against the failures of the priest. So let's jump into this. Leviticus chapter 9, verses 15 through 21. It says, Aaron presented the people's offering. He took a male goat for the people's sin offering, slaughtered it, and made a sin offering with it as he did before. He presented the burnt offering and sacrificed it according to the regulations. Next, he presented the grain offering, took a handful of it, and burned it on the altar in addition to the morning burnt offering. And then finally, he slaughtered an ox and a ram as the people's fellowship offering. Aaron's sons brought him the blood, and he splattered it on the sides of the altar. They also brought the fat portions of the ox and the ram, and the fat tail and the fat surrounding the entrails and the kidneys, and the fatty lobe of the liver, and placed them on the breast. Aaron burnt the fat portions on the altar, but he presented the breast and the right thigh as a presentation offering before the Lord, as Moses commanded. Here we see that Aaron presented an offering on the behalf of the Israelite people. These offerings included the people's sin offering, the burnt offering, as well as the grain offering, the fellowship offering, bringing the people into right relationship with God, as well as the presentation offering that we mentioned in verse 21. The last, if you want to go back to last week's lesson and see some more detail about those offerings, we're not going to go into detail of those, but I would encourage you to look at those if you have questions or your people have questions about that. The male goat was stipulated as a part of the sin offering when the leader sinned. A bull was required when it was the congregation or the people's sin. In this situation, however, the male goat probably first represented the elders and the leaders of the Israelite nation, and as a result, it also covered the entire nation. That's what we see mentioned in verse 15. It says in verse 16 that Aaron sacrificed the animal and did the burnt offering that was associated with the sin offering. And again, he did that just as the Lord had prescribed for them to do. And then verse 17, the grain offering expressed the gratitude of God's provision. And then the fellowship offering presented the best part of the animal to the Lord. And then the people and the priests consumed the remainder in a joyful fellowship meal. The presentation offering, which is also called the wave or the elevation offering, was associated with the fellowship offering, with the breast and the right thigh being used by the priest. In other words, what he would do is he would take that breast or that thigh and he would take that and he would present it, or he would